produces a change in their policies. Yeah. Look,
and
China,
what do you think the chance that that happens?
I think the chances are not good. I think we've been far better off to stay in the Trans-Pacific Partnership and put pressure on China with a multinational group as opposed to just the United States. I think it's much harder unilaterally to get a country like China, which is essentially a single-party government. They control the press. They control.
You do hear noises from Chinese officials and the government, just by way of the state newspapers, of just how anxious they are, how they are fighting back, at least with rhetoric, in a way that they never did before.
Look, they've got their own set of problems, independent of President Trump, independent of tariffs, and trying to solve those problems won't be easy for them. And there's no question they need the United States market. And there's no question, in my view at least, since they ascended in the WTO 17 years ago, they've been violating those rules and making it more difficult for those of us who supported it at the time to say we did the right thing. So I think putting pressure on them is the right thing to do, to get them to change their policies. I actually think long-term is good for China as well. But in the short term, they've got to change their policies on intellectual property and other sorts of things that, I'll repeat, I think it's far better.
Though, how do you get them to the table?
I think it's far easier if we'd have stayed in the Trans-Pacific Partnership and negotiated on a multinational basis.
Cue the Susan Sarandon photo. Susan Sarandon at the DNC, at the Democratic National Convention, holding up a big sign that said, with a big X through the TPP. I say all of that because no matter who won, with all due respect, TPP was never going to happen. Hillary Clinton was against it. President Trump was against it. And by the way, the Democratic Party has come against TPP. I mean, it's very frustrating to listen to everybody say, I mean, it was an easy win for President Trump to say.
You're getting all worked up over this. I mean, I listen to because over and over again, first of all, I don't know if you noticed it. Yeah. I'm not Susan Sarandon.
No,
so I'm not defending Susan Sarandon. I would never defend Susan Sarandon.
But
so
to say we should have stayed in the TPP, it was never going to happen.
Is Donald Trump saying I'm not going to do anything unless the Democratic Party supports it? He made a decision to withdraw from the TPP. He is arguing against NAFTA. I voted for NAFTA, and I think NAFTA has been enormously beneficial. My party didn't like it. Labor didn't like it. It is true that there's disagreements here, but you expect a Republican president to support trade, and he's not. And that's his decision. He wasn't influenced by Susan Sarandon. He made a choice to say, I'm going to get out of the TPP. And all I'm saying is that weakens us when you're trying to get the Chinese to change their policy.
My point is it was an easy political choice for him to make because nobody wanted it anyway. So he could declare to win and
apologize for him. I accept your apology. But all I'm saying, I just repeat it, we'd been far better, and the Democrats would be far better off. And I think Hillary would have been in a much stronger position had she not reversed herself on TPP.
I am not apologizing for President Trump, but when we talk about what could be done, what do we do right now? People repeatedly bring up TPP, which is pointless.
I got invited on this show to talk about stuff, and you asked my opinion about what I think ought to be done. And I think when it comes to trade, you're much better off with China with a multinational group. It's far different to say America first and say America alone. It's harder to get negotiations going with China. I'm saying China has got bad policy. I'm saying they need to change their policy. They're not the only one. The Germans need to change their policy.
There was talk that the U.S. would leave the WTO. There's now talk that China should be kicked out of the WTO. What do you think of that?
That's a rhetorical talk people are saying? Well, what is that all about? That kind of rhetorical thing people are talking about it. No, I don't think China should be kicked out of the WTO. I think it would be a big mistake for us to do it. But I think it's right for us to put pressure on them to get to change their policy. They made promises to agree to international rules, and they've broken those promises. Okay, and I think it's enormously important for us to say that and stand up to them.
Let me ask you a different question. There are U.S. companies that want to do business in China.
This is going to be fun.
That historically have not done business in China. And I'm thinking about Google. Google may try to return to China. If you were a U.S. company, and you advise U.S. companies all the time, right now about how they can or cannot do business in China, you would tell them what?
Be careful. I mean, I don't know. They could change their mind. It's said about the Chinese that an agreement is a temporary interruption in the negotiations. So you just have to be careful. You don't have the same kind of due process that you have in the United States.
Let me ask you a separate question. It goes to our relationship with other countries right now, which is this spat that's taking place between Saudi Arabia and Canada.
Whoa. That's a spat, all right.
It's more than a spat. And the question that's come up on this set multiple times now is it a function of meaning the U.S. is changing allegiances in terms of who our allies are? Meaning, does Saudi Arabia feel like they have license to do things to Canada that they wouldn't have 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago, given the support that it appeared we had as an ally of Canada previously?
Look, I think Mohammed bin Salman is trying to make change happen in Saudi Arabia. He's adjusting to a new world, and he made a terrible mistake, in my view, responding to a single tweet, even though it was put out in Arabic. You can say, well, she put it out in Arabic, she shouldn't have done that. It's a massive overreaction. And I do think this is a situation where it could be that President Trump, as a consequence of establishing a better relationship with MBS, it's possible he might be able to get him to reverse it, because it's not constructive for Saudi Arabia to do this.
All right, I'm going to end this on a positive note. I'll give you a chance to be reasonable and how many points will you give me when Colorado plays Nebraska on September 8th? 10?
17.
You'll give me 17.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's not so bad. All right, I'll take him.
Will you?
September 8th.
Is it legal for us to talk about
it? It is now.
Is it?
It is now.
By the way,
it is now.
You guys have let your brand get away.
I know. You mean CNBC or the Buffaloes?
No, Squawk. If you try to, first of all, there's no podcast. I checked it out to try to see if I could.
Can we talk about this off camera?
Yeah, thank
Bob?
you.
Can we, what do you mean? I thought our brand was pretty good.
It is, but it's been stolen. People are using.
Saying Squawk.
Squawk.
Someone has stolen the Squawk.
Well, they're using it. There's multiple Squawk.
Okay, we will
but it's not this one.
Not
we
this
will
one.
get our lawyers
17
on
points.
the case.
All right, 17 points.